Welcome to the Good for America podcast. I'm your host, former Congressman Bob Good, former chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. And I am particularly excited today to have a special guest, actually our first guest on the Good for America podcast. And it is my wonderful friend from the great state of South Carolina, Ralph Norman, the representative for South Carolina's 5th District. Ralph, welcome to the Good for America podcast.
Well, always glad to be with you, Bob, and thank you for what you did in Congress, and thank you for doing this.
Well, it was a pleasure to serve alongside you, and it's an honor to have you as our first guest on the Good for America podcast. Folks who may not know Ralph's background, Ralph Norman was elected in 2016, so he's in his 5th term in the House. He is on the very important Rules Committee, which I'm going to ask him to talk a little bit about the Rules Committee. You might not be that familiar with that committee. He's on the Financial Services Committee, and he's also on the Budget Committee. Now, you might think, the House doesn't have a budget committee. We actually have a budget committee in the House. We just don't do any real budgeting, unfortunately, through most of the last few decades. But Ralph's on, again, Rules, Financial Services, and Budget Committee. More importantly, he's a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He's on the leadership team or the governing board, the House Freedom Caucus. He and I had the privilege of serving together in that capacity during my time in Congress. And Ralph has been married to the wonderful Elaine for 50 years, and they have 4 wonderful children and 17 grandchildren. So again, Ralph Norman, thanks for being our first guest on the Good for America podcast.
My pleasure.
Now, Ralph, I wanted to, as I referenced just a few moments ago, tell folks just a little bit about the Rules Committee and why the Rules Committee is so important, what you guys do on the Rules Committee, and what it's like to be a conservative fighter on the Rules Committee in the House.
Well, Rules Committee is a very important committee in two ways. One, you get to see every bit of legislation that ultimately the speaker sends up that wants to hit the floor. It goes through the Rules Committee. And secondly, you've got such an opportunity to weigh in on what comes out of the committee. Do you do a closed rule with no amendments? Do you do a kind of a version of that where some amendments are allowed and not? And it's a way to learn. It's a way to understand the bills before they hit the floor. You can be a part of the debate once it hits the floor. And we go in if we fly in on a Monday, the Rules Committee meets Monday. Typically, it's for 3.5, 4 hours that we go through the debate on each rule. You have two sides, the Democrat and Republican, that advocate for the particular bill. We've got it's a total of 13 members, 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And there's unlimited debate time that you can advocate for what you want in a rule. And Virginia Foxx is chairman, Morgan Griffin is vice chairman. And it's a lively debate, and it's one that I knew nothing about when Kevin McCarthy, when we were voting to put him out, he called me in and said, what do you want? I said, Kevin, I don't want anything. I just, we want good government. We, the disagreements that you know about, Bob, I told him. He said, well, what about Rules Committee? I said, I'll be glad to do that. I mean, but it's the best, one of the best committees I've had. I've learned a lot. Time consuming, yes, but very well worth the time that we spend on it.
So to clarify what Ralph's saying there, and appreciate you sharing that, Ralph, the Rules Committee determines the conditions under which every piece of legislation comes to the House floor for a vote. So they're the ones who decide. There's 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats to give the Republicans essentially a supermajority. So everybody on there is assigned at the will of the speaker. So it's a select committee. So the speaker chooses who's on the Rules Committee. And as Ralph said, Kevin McCarthy was the one January 23 when Ralph and I were in the battle to try to determine who would become speaker and under what conditions they could become speaker. We went through 15 rounds. We were fighting to change the rules of Congress to return to what's called regular order. And one of those points of leverage was to get some conservatives like Congressman Ralph Norman, on the Rules Committee. And Ralph, you had to give up the Oversight Committee that you liked being on to get on the Rules Committee. You're already on the Financial Services Committee, which is one of the most demanding, time intensive committees in the House as well. And then you were on the Budget Committee, which has obviously been a very important committee also. But that Rules Committee is so powerful. And how about how does it come into play when you're trying to decide if legislation is conservative enough to come to the floor when you're battling over maybe a CR like you had back in March, or you're battling with respect to the big bill, or talk a little bit about the Rules Committee as it applies to some of those more controversial bills when we're trying to figure out if we have enough votes for it to pass.
Well, first of all, the Democrats, the four, vote against anything that comes up from the Republican Party. We got a supermajority, and I don't think we've had one vote that they didn't vote in unison. And it only takes three of us to, if the Democrats, if we didn't like the Republican bill, it would take three of us to side with the Democrats and put forth or defeat a bill. Because there's no way they're going to vote for anything. They hate Donald Trump so much that's just what they do. The committee, Steve Scalise and the Speaker, control a good bit of what ultimately they want to see in the bill, because that's why they're referring it to the floor or to the Rules Committee, which then goes to the floor for debate. And we kind of have the parameters set for us, but if we really feel strong about something, then we could get it added before we ever meet. And I think a perfect example was Andrew Clyde had an amendment that had to do with the Second Amendment that he wanted on, and we debated getting that in, and we were successful in doing it. I get a lot of calls, and all of us do, on different things that want to be considered, and some of it we can get in. Very seldom is anything passed if somebody just shows up and wants to add something to our existing load that we have. And typically recently it's been very time consuming to go over. This budget bill was very time consuming. The Democrats use every parliamentary trick in the book. They ask for a recorded vote on everything, and they put up amendment after amendment after amendment. And they're ruled out of order, or we just vote them down, but we have to go through that process. So I know of no more important committee than the Rules Committee, and I'm going to miss that along with the other. And you're right, Oversight Committee was a great committee. I got very frustrated with it because there was never any consequences. We went through the process of going through the hearings, but very little consequences for those who violated what we considered violated the law.
Well, thanks for being willing to be on that tough, thankless committee so much. The time that's involved, as you've mentioned, unlimited debate. The Democrats can filibuster, but we got Chip Roy on there with you, Morgan Griffith with you, there with you on it. And so those three conservatives help hold the Republican Party accountable for what can get through the Rules Committee. And I appreciate the courage you've shown, Ralph, you and your colleagues, in being willing to be tough on the Rules Committee and not willing just to go along to get along, irrespective of what the party might try to do. And I know you and the other guys on the Rules Committee that we mentioned, along with the Freedom Caucus generally, has fought to make things more conservative. On that note, we just finished 7 months, the first 7 months of the year, January through July, obviously, where Republicans have full control of government. Republicans obviously have the House. We had the House for the last 2 years, but of course the Democrats had the Senate with Schumer, and then they had the White House with Biden. But now we've got full control of government. And now, as we're in this August recess period, which I know, by the way, for a good Congress member like you, it is not a rest period. It is a district work period, and you're running around your district trying to get as much done as you can to visit every city and county in your district and to be everywhere at the same time, which is a pretty tough assignment. But talk about, if you will, just a little bit about how you feel about the first 7 months of the year under full Republican control, what you're proud of or feel like Republicans have done well, and maybe where you feel like we've come short and where we need to do better. Just kind of assess those first 7 months of Republican full control of government.
Well, I mean, and you know this, Bob, from your time in service. The previous 4 years under Joe Biden was was horrendous. It was awful. Being out of control, not having the gavel was unbelievably bad for the country and bad for the voters in America. Um, I think the things that, and Donald Trump has done a great job. What he did and I've said this over and over again, what he did to take out the number one sponsor of terror in Iran took a lot of courage, and he acts, and that was the right thing to do. He got a lot of criticism for it. The other thing he's doing, very well is when I voted against the budget. Three of us voted to withhold the budget committee, but to hold back the big beautiful bill.
It took a lot
Um,
of courage, by the way. Took a lot of courage on your part.
well, and that's an easy vote for me, Bob. I mean, it does take, I guess, courage. I don't care what the establishment think. I just don't. Um, the reason that, and I don't think it's going to be close now with the midterms, not from our own actions, because as you know, we don't go bold enough on getting true conservatives to run, to back them. And the Democrats have pretty much done it to themselves. And all you have to do is look at what's happening in New York City. Mamdani, he's a communist. He's not a socialist. He's a communist. When you look what's happening in California, uh, it's that state is in shambles now. It's a cesspool of drugs and homelessness, and the people are moving out instead of fighting it. Um, but what's gone well is I think the big beautiful bill was what America needed at the time. The and the president called 12 of us in and just said, "Look, what am I missing?" And he's good about that. Um, and we just said, "Mr. President, we want what you want, but we're going to negotiate it to the very end." And the tax cuts alone warranted passing that bill, because if the American business didn't get the cuts that they did, excess depreciation, lowering the capital gains, estate tax, 1031s, all that, we would have had a tremendous problem in this country with the businesses that pay the tax. Um, did it go far enough? The reason I have voted against it, I didn't think it did. Should government be given a $7,500 tax credit for an electric car? I don't think so. Should government be given wind and solar a tax break? I don't think so. Um, and that's what we're negotiating for. And the president agreed with us. And I thought it was interesting when we were going to when it ping ponged back to from the Senate and they got it back to us. I thought that was the perfect opportunity to come back with what we had agreed to: the 1.5 minimum, the 2 trillion in cuts, aspirational. And to his credit, he said, "Now, if you do that, it's not coming back." And Murkowski, her term doesn't end until the president leaves office. Tom Tillis is not running again. Rand Paul's going to vote no regardless. That made sense to me. So we ended up swallowing the big beautiful bill when I would have preferred to drive a harder bargain and had a lot bigger rescission package. 9.44 billion is a teardrop in the ocean. All that to say is it's been a great 7 months. I don't know of anybody else, to be honest with you, Bob, that could have done what he's done. It's been under tremendous opposition, not just from the Democrats. A lot of the Republicans fight him, but he's moved the ball down the field for this country, which if you compare it to Kamala Harris, we would have been under total government control, total socialism through and through.
Well, a lot of good points there. And as you might imagine, and probably not a surprise to you, because I know your heart and we work side by side on these issues, but where I'm most concerned is that weren't able to achieve a larger impact on the debt trajectory with the big bill over the next 10 years. And you already noted it. I think one of the big accomplishments in the first 6, 7 months here was that, even though it's tiny by comparison, that $9 billion rescissions package, since Republicans haven't cut anything in such a long period of time, and you're battling some half or two-thirds of the Republican conference that doesn't really want to cut spending, it seems like. So to get through the House and the Senate, I mean, it's only 1/10 of 1% of the budget, but still $9 billion worth of rescissions, and to cut things that, for some of them stuff, foreign aid and public broadcasting, to cut those things. Or was it foreign aid and Planned Parenthood, or was it foreign aid and public broadcasting? I guess it was. But to get that
PBS.
to get that 9 billion through was significant. And so, as you look though to the funding of the government with September 30 approaching, so I'm guessing when the CR went down in March, that you were given assurances, and I say I'm guessing, so you can correct me. You were given assurances that would be the last CR, that, hey, we're going to attack more spending cuts and reconciliation. And then during reconciliation, hey, we'll attack spending cuts with the appropriations process, the 12 bills that are due by September 30. But now the August recess took place, when I know last year Speaker Johnson promised not to take the August recess if we didn't do the 12 bills. I'm guessing he probably promised that at some point this year to you guys about this year's August recess. You guys get back after Labor Day, 3 weeks in session until the end of the fiscal year. What do you see happening September 30? What would you like to see happen? And what do you think really will happen with the funding of the government between now and September 30?
Well, you and I always battle for regular order. I mean, is it really that hard to pass the 12 appropriation bills? Only in Washington, D.C. is it almost a almost a miracle if you do. What do I see? I was hoping we would come back early from the August recess. There's no magic in having August off. I know we normally do. I would have preferred to stay longer or come back early and tackle these things. But as you know, every dollar that's spent in D.C. has got an advocate for it. The PBS, as an example, that's a woke station. I mean, conservatives don't have a chance there, and to provide funding, they bought the Democrat line that people are not going to have access to valuable information that the PBS has, and same with NPR. And why are we propping those up when we don't prop others up? Competition is what made the country what it is, but that's what we're faced with. So what I anticipate is going to be another CR. And
Are they even saying, if I may, are they telling you now? Did they say that before they left in last week? Hey, we're just going to do a CR. Are they pretending like they're going to work on the 12 bills? I think you all have passed three or four of them. The Senate hasn't passed any on the floor, but they got that minibus out of committee, I guess. Are they saying they're just going to do a CR? Or are they still pretending they're going to work on the 12 bills? What are they saying?
well,
Are they not telling you?
they're really not. I mean, it's not really. They're not saying. But look at the calendar. 3 weeks. September 30th comes in, what's that? 21 days. Oh, really? No, it's not even that, because you take out Saturday and
Right.
Sunday.
It's like 12
So
legislative days.
12 days. And so, no, the reality is not going to happen. And so we'll deal with it. And, Andy Biggs hates it. I hate it. A lot of us hate it in the Freedom Caucus. But, it's so frustrating. It really is to not have more cuts than we had. And I get the Senate is a different animal. But the House controls the purse strings. So we ought to be driving the ship on this. And we just aren't. And
Well, and
so,
the problem too, Ralph, is that we ought to be able to put this as a Schumer shutdown come September 30, because if the House would pass 12 conservative spending bills, which is certainly within our power to do, and if the president would throw his weight behind conservative policy and spending cuts and so forth and pressure the moderates to come along with 12 good conservative spending bills, then if John Thune can deliver 53 votes in the Senate and Chuck Schumer doesn't come along, then it becomes the Schumer shutdown, which he caved in March on the CR. I suspect he would cave in September if the Republicans were doing their job and we had 12 good conservative bills that we needed 7 votes in the Senate from the Democrats on. And let's call their bluff, stare them down, and refuse to not fund the government appropriately and let Schumer shut it down if he wants to. But if we don't do that and we just do a compromise CR, then we surrender that leverage, if you will. We surrender that moral high ground that Republicans are willing to do what we told the American people we would do if they gave us, trusted us with full control of government.
And that's what should happen. But I mean, you know the mentality over there. The moderates just aren't going. They've never been in the business arena that you make tough decisions and you do what you say. And you're right, it is a Schumer shutdown if it happens. But for all the different reasons that you and I have heard over a long period of time, they're just not going to do that. They bite at the fact that they're going to be blamed for it. In the House, you're really running every 15 months. We're there for 2 years, but it's 15 months. And they're just scared to death they're going to be painted in a bad light. And the Democrats know that. That's why on the PBS, I mean, I sat there at the Rules Committee, went through, and the big, beautiful bill, how the big, beautiful bill's kicking children off Medicaid and Social Security cuts, which we can't cut anyway in reconciliation. You can't do that. But their message is louder than ours because the media, mainstream media, is with them. And that's what bluffs out the Republicans. And to be honest with you, that's why. But now I hope it won't even be close. I think we're going to keep the majority, but I think it'll be close. And we got to back conservative candidates that will not fall for that bluff, and we'll let the shutdown occur. I don't think Schumer would do it because he's getting competition now, which he values that job more than life.
And there's a lot of that going around in D.C. where their whole priority is to be there and to stay there and to hold on to power. But Republicans are going to have a problem with. I'm sure there are some of our conservative friends like yourself who said, "Hey, they're not doing another CR, so do they have to compromise and do a CR, or is leadership going to deliver on the 12 spending bills?" You and I can both forecast what we think will likely happen. But to your point, as we look to the 26 midterms, Republicans ought to use that as motivation to go big, to go bold, to go courageous, to deliver on our conservative priorities, our conservative commitments, our conservative principles, which, for one, if we were to lose the midterms, and let's get it done now before we lost the midterms and lost control. But number two, more importantly, or equally important, I think if we do like you say, we've got a better chance to win the midterms. Hopefully the American people suffered enough under Joe Biden and Pelosi and Schumer over the past 4 years that they don't want to go back there. And hopefully they won't even consider giving Democrats control of government again a year from now. But I think a lot of that will depend on what Republicans do between now and the midterms. And I want to shift to your new campaign in just a moment here, but it would be a lot worse in Washington if it weren't for the courageous fighters like yourself who are at least having the debates and at least having the fights about cutting spending. It wouldn't be talked about if it weren't for people like you. So thanks for willing to do that. But tell us about why you've made the decision, the big announcement about a week ago or so about running for governor in South Carolina. Tell us why you're running for governor and just give us a little bit of an update on your launch of your campaign.
Well, it was a tough decision. I was enjoying it with having the conservative leadership. Trump is setting a fast pace, 7 months turning this country around like he has. South Carolina is the number one suitcase state, meaning people are moving there. The liberals who have completely ruined California, the good people are getting out. New York the same. And where are they coming? South Carolina. You've been to our beaches. You've been to our mountains. We've got a great state. And we just have to protect it. And I will be going up against an establishment because you only get a chance at this once every 8 years. It'll be 2035 before this opportunity comes up again. I say that because incumbents rarely lose. And governor particularly, you serve 8 years. So we've got desperate need for judicial reform. We elect judges. the trial lawyers elect judges. Only in Virginia and South Carolina do they do it. We, the people, should do it. Our roads have a D rating. Our airports have a D rating. Our transmission lines have a D rating. For a state that's prosperous, where people are moving to, I'm going to change all that. Term limits, I'm more now committed to getting some of these politicians out with term limits. There's no reason that they ought to come up there and live instead of going in the real world and living under some of these laws that they make. I'm a good example of it. I put term limits up every year when I was in Congress, and for whatever reason, get thrown out in committee, and a lot of Republicans killed it the last time. But those are just some of the things. I'm going to put together a DOGE commission. I'm going to know where every dollar went, and we're going to put it in our dilapidated bridges, our dilapidated roads, and we're going to have judicial reform. We're going to change that. We're going to have term limits. And I do think that with the attitude now, I had 1,000 people at my kickoff, over 1,000.
Wow.
And typically you don't have, but
Yeah.
I never know. Is it going to be 100, 200, 300? It's triple what all the others combined have had.
Wonderful.
My opponents. So that's why I'm running. I'm needed there more than I am on the federal level.
Well, you said it, Ralph. South Carolina is one of the most Republican states in the country, but sometimes that means Republicanism is a mile wide and an inch deep. I know you got a Republican swamp there too. You got a lot of moderate rhinos throwing their hats in the ring for this race. You got a state Freedom Caucus chapter there that started a few years ago that's one of the best in the country. I know the conservatives across South Carolina are very excited. I'm thrilled to hear, but not totally surprised to hear you'd have 1,000 people at your kickoff. You're the clear conservative candidate in the race, and I like your chances in the primary to that effect. How can folks follow the race? How can folks help you?
RalphNormanForGovernor.com.
RalphNormanForGovernor.com for a true courageous conservative warrior to lead the state of South Carolina. Big loss to the House of Representatives in D.C., big loss to the Freedom Caucus, but he's earned the opportunity to lead the state of South Carolina. I hope everyone from South Carolina will support his race for governor. Ralph, thank you so much for joining us today. And to our audience, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Good for America podcast. As always, subscribe to the show. Follow me on social media at Rep Bob Good. Be sure and rate the show and refer it to your friends. Let's keep the republic.